Hello. On my previous video I showed how I managed to damage a brake pipe whilst changing a brake hose on my Defender. As you can see, what had happened is the union nut had fused itself to the brake pipe, so the minute I twisted the nut it snapped the pipe, which was obviously very corroded anyway. What I'm hopefully going to do in this video is show how I made up the replacement part and what tools I used. This is a pipe flaring kit that I bought from Halfords a while ago, and although it's pretty comprehensive, I found it a little bit hit and miss sometimes, so I tend not to use it unless I really have to. However, what I will be using from this kit is the special punch grease. What you can see here is the tool that I actually used to do the brake pipe flaring with. In addition to this tool, I needed a 17mm spanner, a 10mm spanner and a tube cutter. Also I needed a Sharpie marker and a piece of string, along with a pipe bender of course. I'm demonstrating here what the channels in the rollers of the tube cutter are used for. This is very handy if you've got a damaged flare on the end of a piece of pipe that you need to remove. I use a piece of string to trace round the pipe that's broken or damaged, so that I can get a good approximation of the length that I might require. Once I've got the approximate length, I get the tube that I'm going to be using, which in this case is 3/16 soft copper, and just measure out along the tube so that I know where to cut it. I always use a black marker just to indicate where I want to cut the pipe or I'm going to bend it. It saves any problems later. As you can see, the tube cutter makes pretty short work of this, cutting it straight and without much effort at all. Once I've cut the piece of pipe, I double check it for length with the piece of string that I had. I don't want to be wasting any time or materials by having the wrong length tube. Once the nut's on and the pipe's deburred, I push the pipe into the tool as far as that hole that's there on the side. Then I insert the stop bolt and tighten it up with the 17mm spanner. What this does, it pushes the copper pipe to the right position. So before I start manipulating the pipe, I always make sure that the nut is on, or the appropriate nut is on, and that I've deburred the inside of the pipe. And then I tighten up the two 10mm bolts, and what these bolts do is they grip the copper pipe and prevent it from moving back. Once I'm satisfied they're tight enough, I can remove the stop bolt with the 17mm spanner. What I do next is take the flange flaring punch and apply grease to the end. I make sure that I'm using the correct end of the punch first. It's clearly marked on the side. Once it's greased, I insert it into the thread and do it up as tight as I can with my hand, and then I finish off the tightening up procedure with the 17mm spanner. When tightening this, there is a little bit of resistance. Once I've completed this part of the task, I undo the punch, spin it round, grease the end up, and then screw that into the tool as far as I can get it, and then finish it off with the spanner. When tightening the punch, I notice there's not as much resistance as there was before. Once I'm happy that the punch is as far as it will go into the tool, I loosen it off, remove it, and then undo or loosen off the two 10mm bolts. I have to undo them quite a way, but I don't want to take them all the way out, because then the two halves of the tool will come apart. As you can see here, the tool has made a good job of this double flare. No burrs or anything, and it seems pretty thick, so it looks like a good strong flare. The beauty of this tool is it's quite compact, so in theory I can form a flare on a piece of pipe when it's still on the vehicle. The next part of the job is to form the bends on the pipe. The first thing I do is mark approximately where I want the first 90-degree bend. I'm having to estimate this because I've lost the piece that I broke off, unfortunately. For this job I'm using a relatively cheap pipe bender. This is a very basic model, but I find that it does the job perfectly for me. So here the pen mark is marking the centre of the bend, and I normally line it up with that centre mark there, and that gives you dead centre of the bend. As I said before, I always try to mark the pipe where I'm going to cut it or bend it, because it's so easy for you to lose the spot when you've got it in the bender or the cutter. Not marking it could be a costly mistake, both in materials and time. Fortunately, I don't have to be overly accurate with the pipe bending. I've got a little bit of flexibility. The copper pipe is quite forgiving, so you can manipulate it by hand into the position if you've got it roughly the right shape. My tip here would be to always keep your pipe formers greased or oiled. It prevents the dragging and deformity or distortion of the pipe. For these gentle bends I just ease the pipe round with my thumb, just forming it into the approximate shape. As I said, it's quite a forgiving thing, this, so I've only got to get it roughly there, but I have to have the 90-degree bend in approximately the right place. As I said previously, it doesn't have to be 100% accurate when you're using copper, because if I don't get this angle right I can twist it slightly, but I don't want to over twist it, so I want to get it in approximately the right place before I make the bend. Here I've got to be very careful that I've got enough room in front of the bend for the nut and the pipe flaring tool, and enough material to pass through the pipe flaring tool. Otherwise I won't be able to form the end of the pipe properly. So first I slip the nut on, and then I offer up the tool and make a mark quite generously where I want to cut the pipe. Once the pipe's cut and deburred, and I'm happy that the nut can move freely, I insert the pipe into the flaring tool, repeating all the previous steps of tightening the pipe down in the flaring tool and getting the pipe in the right place. But this time I'm not going to make a double flare, I'm going to form a balloon at the end of the pipe. As you can see, I'm following the same steps as before when I did the double flare, except for this time I'm just going to insert the punch once. What this does, it forms a balloon at the end of the pipe. There we are, the two ends don't look too dissimilar. Now it's just a case of checking that it fits in place and then making the final connections. Yes, it looks to be about right. Here you can see it's loosely fitted into the caliper, and the other end lines up with the bracket perfectly. As I mentioned before, copper's quite forgiving. You can manipulate it and spin it, but this looks like a perfect fit to me anyway, so no real need for any major manipulation or twisting. So that's it, job done. Just a case of tightening it up and testing it. I don't think there'll be any problems.